Well, happy Thursday, everyone. It's Dave Hilton from Resolution Stream here with our final, hard to believe, our final live stream for the month of April, which is Workplace Conflict Awareness Month. So it's it's crazy that it's already been a month and all the things that I've posted up on our YouTube channel and our websites and talking about workplace conflict. It's been an absolute blast, and your feedback has been fantastic as well. Thank you for that. It kind of helps guide me in the things that I talk about in future videos and future live streams. But it is Workplace Conflict Awareness Month. In fact, I guess just a couple of days left of the month here. So we've got to talk about these particular items here of the 3 effective ways to manage or resolve workplace conflict. Now, there are a lot more options than just 3. I mean, there's no way. I mean, I could probably do a 20-hour live stream just to go through all of the different ways that you can effectively resolve and manage workplace conflict. But I wanted to just pick 3 of them to discuss today, especially for the types of people who typically watch my videos, where your company, you don't have a gigantic Fortune 500 company. You're an entrepreneur with a small team, or maybe you've got a team of a couple hundred, or even up to 1,000 or so. Those good, great businesses that entrepreneurs run, and you're just trying to figure out ways that, you don't have levels and levels of management, so you don't have to worry about some of the problems the larger companies do, but you can still have some major problems due to unresolved workplace conflict. Now, in other videos that I've done before, I've talked about my concept of the conflict continuum. Now, the conflict continuum idea isn't new, but this particular setup that we've put together here for Resolution Stream, whenever we want to talk about the different levels and how you go from one end of the spectrum of the continuum up to another one, and it's not necessarily linear. You can bounce around depending on what kind of conflict you're dealing with. But today, what we're really wanting to talk about is some of the areas here in the green. You can see there on the very far left-hand side, the green options over here, up to mediation, up to some of the yellow ones, and even into some part of the orange. But what we're trying to avoid here, the 3 that I'm talking about, is talking about the more aggressive and versions of dealing with conflict: litigation, legislation, protest, violent, nonviolent protest, war, that sort of thing. We want to stick down further to the bottom left of the conflict continuum with the 3 that we're going to talk about here today. So the first one I want to talk about, the first option, is coaching. Now, we also call this sometimes facilitating conversations. Sometimes we can facilitate a conversation between multiple people, between teams, just facilitate a conversation and not actually have the other person in the room, just preparing, just by coaching somebody to deal with a difficult conversation. In fact, I do this quite often. If you go to our website, resolutionstream.com, you actually see one of the options at the very top is, if you dealing with a conflict emergency and you need help right now. So I've got a conflict emergency call that you can actually book with me to deal with. And I'm laughing just because, this is something that we deal with a lot, that people don't know where to turn. They don't necessarily have a mentor when it comes to conflict resolution or dealing with difficult people and difficult conversations, and they need somebody to turn to. So that's one of the things that we offer, is this type of coaching. Now, as your organization, your company gets bigger, it can go from where you have, a mentor program for the coaching or the facilitation about how to deal with conflict situations and arguments and disagreements in the workplace. But this can also go up to the larger organizations with ombuds offices. Now, these coaching, the facilitation, the conflict coaching is an actual thing as well. In the ombuds, it just really depends on whether you have it internally focused or whether you have it externally focused. There are plenty of consulting companies just like ours who offer these services to businesses that maybe just don't have the money to be able to have a full-time person who does this, or they don't want their staff being overworked too much, having to deal with this all the time. So there are companies that offer this, and there are a lot of companies, as you get bigger again, that they have somebody that's dedicated to this. Now, in some corporations and organizations, it's HR who deals with this. Some of them are separate offices. Sometimes you have employee assistance programs or internal types of coaching and mentoring that can help new employees or employees dealing with a problem deal with that problem, deal with a difficult employee or conversation or situation. So coaching is the first of the three we wanted to talk about here today in this particular one, the three effective ways to manage or resolve workplace conflict. Because sometimes it's just getting some, a little bit of advice maybe, or some recommendations, or just going through your options. That's a big thing that we do. Ombuds really do that, is they talk about the options, like what if, or what could you, or those types of things. Just coming up with and talking it out with someone typically helps deal with these situations. Another one of the three effective ways to manage or resolve workplace conflict, of course, mediation. Mediation is going to be one of those things that I was talking about from the conflict continuum there. You'll see it in the middle of the yellow section there, closer to the left-hand side. So facilitation that you see over there, that's the coaching. That's the coaching in between the facilitation, the negotiation. You're getting that ombuds help. You're getting that mentor help. You're getting that conflict coaching, whatever it is you need to deal with that specific problem or situation in the workplace. And so mediation falls a little bit further up there, where you actually have somebody who sits down, or they don't necessarily have to be in the same room, but talks with. Sometimes that's called shuttle diplomacy, when they're not actually in the same room, but you're going back and forth and you're trying to help people deal with the situation. And the mediator who's selected, and I have an entire video about this if you want to go watch that, what is mediation exactly. But you get this third party in there, this third party neutral that doesn't have any skin in the game, so to speak, about what the outcome should be. They just want to, their entire purpose, their entire goal in the process is just to be there to help guide the parties closer to an agreement, closer to a resolution, closer to just managing a disagreement, conflict, or argument in the workplace. So mediation is another really effective way to manage or resolve workplace conflict. And just like the coaching options, there are internal mediation programs in certain companies. Again, larger companies tend to have more of a budget that they can do that kind of program. But even smaller companies, some of them will, have one of their employees get trained in conflict resolution and mediation training, and that person's sort of the go-to person. But the most important thing, something you have to keep in mind, is if you train your team to be mediators, the mediators need to be someone who doesn't typically deal with the people who are having the problem. Now, in coaching and ombud, that's a whole different situation where, they can have a little bit more interaction in there as a coach. It could be their supervisor, or an executive who deals with that kind of stuff. But when it comes to mediation, you want to make sure it's somebody that's completely neutral and doesn't really care one way or the other how the deal gets done, as long as the deal gets done. That's their entire purpose of this. So that's why a lot of companies, especially small to medium-sized companies, what they do is they hire a mediator. They just, they work with a consulting firm, they work with professional mediators and other conflict specialists to mediate internal and sometimes even external conflicts. So the third option here, the three effective ways to manage or resolve workplace conflict, is arbitration. Now, again, if you go back to the conflict continuum, you're going to see arbitration is like smack dab in the middle there in the orange. It's further up, the further up and the further to the right you go, the less control the people who are having the disagreement or the argument have over the entire process. So arbitration is where you have a third party come in and pretty much make the decision. They hear it's sort of like a judge, but not really. In fact, a lot of professional arbitrators are retired judges. They are retired attorneys that do a lot of the arbitration work, just because it's sort of like an unofficial, case. They listen to the cases, and then they pretty much have the option of coming up with the actual conclusion, which may not match what either of the other two parties really want, but that's what they decide, right? So again, you lose control. So I've gone up the conflict continuum as I've talked about these three options: the coaching, the mediation, now the arbitration. You bring in this third party, and they basically make the decision for you. Now, there is what's called binding arbitration, and then there's non-binding arbitration. So sometimes arbitration, the parties agree that they have to follow it no matter what. And then non-binding is the arbitrator, they come up with a decision based on the facts and the information that they receive, and they give you their findings and what they rule, but you don't necessarily have to follow it. So it just depends on what kind of an agreement, what kind of arbitration agreement you have. And a lot of times you'll see those, from larger corporations, in the contracts you sign with them, there's that arbitration agreement. And that's what this particular is. Again, I've got additional videos talking about these different forms of conflict resolution, arbitration, mediation, and coaching there if you want to check that out. But that's it there. Again, I could go on, but I just wanted to give you like a brief overview in this live stream here, the 3 effective ways to manage or resolve workplace conflict. That way you can go and you can do some more research. You can go to our website at resolutionstream.com and learn more about these processes and systems. Again, whether it's a small company, a small team, or a larger team, whatever, however it works for you. The entire purpose of me doing the videos this month, because it's the Workplace Conflict Awareness Month. And so I appreciate everybody who has watched all of these videos and who will watch these videos, because remember, managers, they spend 30 to 42% of their time dealing with conflict among employees. So it's very important that managers and entrepreneurs and executives and people on the front line learn these essential skills, because that's a lot of time to spend dealing with all of that conflict. So if you want to learn more about the types of services and products that we can offer companies to help, if you have that kind of thing, if you have that need, our workshops, training, and other services, you can learn more about that at resolutionstream.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time.